Nobody has more respect for women than I do. Nobody.
Hillary Clinton wants to abolish it, believe me. She wants to abolish our Second Amendment.
I think they didn't deny it. I don't think anybody denied it.
Other presidents did not call. They'd write letters, and some presidents didn't do anything.
Many people have come out and said I'm right.
You really do have to ask yourself, where does it stop?
Hello and welcome to Fallacious Trump, the podcast where we use the insane ramblings of a sodden-witted lord with no more brain than I have in mine elbows to explain logical fallacies. I'm your host, Jim.
And I'm your other host, Mark. A logical fallacy is an error in reasoning that results in bad or invalid arguments. And the logical fallacy we're looking at this week is the think of the children fallacy, also known as Lovejoy's Law. Sodden-witted lord, is that Faust?
Oh, well, I went to see Troilus and Cressida at the Globe last week, and this is Thersites to Ajax.
Right, it's the line that stuck out.
And
right,
sodden-witted lord, and thou hast no more brain than I have in mine elbows.
Fantastic.
And Shakespeare's just so good at insulting people.
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
Yeah. So the think of the children fallacy.
Yeah.
Is a specific appeal to emotion, basically.
Right.
It's abandoning reason and the addressing of the actual argument to bring emotion into the argument by invoking children. Theoretical harm, usually to theoretical children.
Yeah.
That puts your opponent in a position where if they continue to argue against your point, it makes them seem like they don't care about the children.
Yeah.
Because think about the show. If they're still arguing, they're not thinking about. They're
obviously not doing it. Yeah.
So the reason it's sometimes called Lovejoy's Law is because of Reverend Lovejoy's wife in The Simpsons, who would repeatedly exclaim, "Won't somebody think of the children?" whatever the issue was, whether it was bears getting into Springfield or prohibition or whatever. It came up
monorails.
Again.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. So it's kind of it makes me think it's a straw man wrapped up in a thought-terminating cliche, because you can.
It's definitely a thought-terminating cliche, because it's an attempt to derail the conversation in a way that makes it hard to then continue with.
Yes.
I would say there's a bit of Iron Man in there as well, because in a way you're saying that my position is just that I'm thinking about the children.
Right. Yeah.
That's my position.
Yeah.
How can you argue against that?
Yes. Yeah. Nice.
So, our first example is from Trump.
Yep.
And he's talking about what he calls left-wing gender insanity and what LGBTQ people call existing.
The left-wing gender insanity being pushed on our children is an act of child abuse. Very simple. Here's my plan to stop the chemical, physical, and emotional mutilation of our youth. On day one, I will revoke Joe Biden's cruel policies on so-called gender-affirming care. Ridiculous. A process that includes giving kids puberty blockers, mutating their physical appearance, and ultimately performing surgery on minor children. Can you believe this?
I mean, you shouldn't believe it.
No. Yeah.
Because, Joe Biden's cruel policies on gender-affirming care were allowing it to be a thing that is available to people after usually years of medical intervention of doctors and medical health professionals and many appointments to discuss what's going on with people under 12.
Yeah.
I hesitate to say never because maybe there's an example, but it is almost never surgical in any way.
Mm-hmm.
It is a social transition that happens. Certainly the guidelines do not in any way suggest that it should be anything beyond a social transition that occurs of being called by your preferred pronouns, your preferred name, and perhaps dressing in clothes appropriate to the gender that you identify with and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
In fact, a 2019 Harvard study found that certainly in that year, there was no kind of medical intervention for 12-year-olds or under, for 13 to 14-year-olds of whom, and that this wasn't a kind of a study where they looked at a few people. This was looking at all of the Americans who are insured, who have health insurance, basically.
Oh, wow.
So across all of the 13 to 14-year-olds who were covered by health insurance, which is about 2.7 million, there were four instances of surgical intervention. And between 15 to 17-year-olds, there were 81 among the 3.8 million of those. And of those 85
Yeah.
surgical interventions, 81 of them were chest-related procedures.
Right.
So almost never bottom surgeries or anything like that.
Yeah.
There were 5 in amongst those 85, and again, this goes all the way up to 17-year-olds. There were 5 that were breast reductions for trans male minors, people under 17 or 17 or under.
Right.
In that same year, there were 146 breast reduction surgeries on cis male minors, which is also considered
Wow.
gender-affirming
Yep.
care.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
they don't have any issue with that, the Republicans. That's fine. Gender-affirming
Right.
care, if you're not trans,
Yeah.
is not frowned on.
Yeah.
And it is 97% of the breast reduction surgeries that are done on male minors, at least in that year under that study.
Yeah. Wow.
So arguing that it's about the kids
Yeah.
is
Yes.
disingenuous at best.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a lie, is really what it
It-
is.
yes,
It's
exactly.
not about
It's
the
a-
kids. They don't care about the kids. It's about being uncomfortable with trans people and wanting to oppress them.
Yeah, all 85 of them. Yes. The problem is blown up to a massive extent in order for it to be something that they can make a policy about and frighten people into nodding in, assenting to. And it's a tiny issue. And actually, surely it would be fine. And well, see, I'm about to use the word humane, but this is the Republicans we're talking about. It's a humane thing to do. Yeah.
Yes, it is absolutely humane.
Yeah.
More to the point, it's life-saving.
Well, yeah. Yes.
Whether it is surgical or whether it is mental health or social or whatever,
Yeah.
whatever form the affirming care takes,
Yeah.
it is important that it happens.
Yeah.
And it's life-saving care.
Yeah.
So our second example
Yeah.
is Trump talking at the Border Security Roundtable.
But what's going on, the crime and the drugs and the smuggling and of everything, including children, we're talking women, yes, but probably the biggest victim of everything we're talking about today are children. And children are used. They're dropped on the border and they're used to get people across because they have an advantage because of the stupidity of what we've got and laws that we've inherited. They have an advantage if they have a child. So they grab children at the border. They walk across. They get across easier if you have children. So they're just using the children. Then they tell them to get out of here. The worst victims are the children and the women. And you don't write about it.
The reason they don't write about it is because
Because it doesn't
bullshit.
exist.
There is
Yeah.
no
You could
evidence
see as he was
whatsoever.
talking about it, he was inventing the children bit.
Yeah.
He was realizing, actually, if I put that in, it will stop any opposition because you fling that in. He kind of went from women, so he's obviously got a piece of paper in front of him saying, here is the impact, and he's just added children and put in probably because it's not true at all. Probably the worst problem we've got is children, and then made up what they did with children so that people clutch their pearls and go, oh, blimey, we can't have that. Yeah, we need to stop that.
Yeah, he's inventing a border where people are just walking across, and the border
Right, for
security
one.
people,
Yeah.
the CBP or whatever, are just watching these people go across. And if they've got a kid with them, they're like, he's probably fine.
Yeah, that's
And
legit.
like,
yeah.
there's no other intervention that happens.
Yeah.
There's paperwork and shit that needs to be
Yeah.
done, and it's just
Yeah.
it is stupidly oversimplified to the point where it simply isn't true. There's
Yes.
absolutely no
Yeah.
evidence of anything he's saying
Yeah.
here. But because he's saying that we need strong border security, we need a wall, and we need all of that kind of stuff because of the children, to protect
Yeah.
the children, because
Yeah.
it's children who are the main victims.
Yeah. Stupidly oversimplified to the point that it's not true. In 300 years' time, when there's a review of his presidential terms, that'll be it. That'll be all that they've got, on the...
It's the Republican tagline for the
That's right, yeah. Stupidly
early
oversimplified
21st century.
to the point of being untrue. Yeah. Another T-shirt right there.
So our final example in this section,
Yep.
it's actually a Vox video about QAnon, about what was happening with QAnon after it had a huge growth in 2020 during the pandemic, when people were just kind of sitting around with a lot less to do. and watching more YouTube videos and getting drawn down the QAnon rabbit hole.
On August 19th, Facebook announced that it would be banning hundreds of QAnon pages and groups. And after that, traffic for QAnon phrases and hashtags fell. But membership in groups posing as anti-child trafficking groups exploded. And in those groups, users were still largely spreading QAnon content. QAnon followers had simply pivoted to a new hashtag to improve their image, one that was already being used for a fundraising campaign by a UK-based charity, Save the Children.
Yes.
Q, or the QAnon movement, the people behind the, who were supporting the QAnon movement, talked a lot less about the kind of satanic cabal of paedophiles and things like that, in terms of this is the secret truth behind what's really going on with the government and kind of Illuminati shit and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And talked a lot more about where are the missing kids. Because they had this thing, they claimed that 800,000 children in the US were missing.
Right.
And why is no one talking about it? You know, why aren't the media talking about it? We have to do something. We have to get our politicians to do something. And Trump is doing something about it somehow.
Yeah.
No one says anything about it. But where that number came from was a study where they had asked parents if they had reported their children as running away. It was somewhere in the region of 800,000, which is quite a lot.
Yeah.
But in 99% of those cases, they came back.
They came back.
Because they had been missing for a couple of hours or for a day or whatever, and they went to a concert or they weren't actually missing. And in some cases, kids go missing. In many of the cases where they really did, it was a custody dispute.
Right.
And it was the other parent who had taken the kid because they felt they had some right to them that wasn't being given them by the courts.
Mm-hmm.
Where there are vulnerable kids who do go missing, it is overwhelmingly in the unhoused community and among LGBTQ youth who are kicked out of their homes by disapproving parents. Those are the two most vulnerable groups who are more likely to go missing and not necessarily be found or get into difficulty.
Yeah.
There's this narrative among the QAnon movement of these missing children that suggests that kids are just being snatched up off the streets in unmarked vans and sold into sex slavery or harvested for adrenochrome that is then drunk by rich Democrats and actors and stuff.
Right.
And it's based on something that has been repeatedly debunked. Yeah. But they don't care about the truth of it, because thinking about the children and save the children, you know, why are you trying to paint us as crazy when all we want to do is help the children?
Yeah.
Gives them an argument that they can make again and again. And what it also does is it gets more people into the movement from the fringes of who wouldn't necessarily believe in the kind of stuff that's in the Great Awakening book that we looked at a while ago. But when they hear, oh, there's children who are being trafficked and there's children who are in danger and stuff like that, and all we want to do is try and help find them and lobby politicians to do something about it, that's something that people can get on board with. And then they slowly get pushed towards the more conspiratorial sides of it.
Yeah.
And it grows that group.
What was the impact on the UK charity Save the Children? Just get lots of more members.
I mean, genuinely, the real impact on organisations that are designed to help missing children was significant and has been significant, because this hasn't gone away.
Yeah.
But the fact that there's so much online, because this was a way to talk about this movement without using the QAnon keywords that might get you banned.
Yeah.
There's such a lot online about missing kids, which is bullshit, that it drowns out the stuff about missing kids who are actually genuinely missing, and the stuff that is being put out by organisations that are set up to do something about it. And so this ironically endangers children. That's what it does. It makes it harder for the real genuine organisations to do the job that they're set up to do.
Well, kind of all of it endangers. Well, certainly the first example, that the trans care that endangers children. That's it. They kind of, but it's not about saving the children. It's about kind of righteous posturing. So it's about apparently holding people to account and saying, why aren't you doing something about the children? And it prevents people from asking them, well, where do you get your facts and figures from? Because all they just say is, won't someone think of the children? And that shuts up the argument, and they don't have to think beyond that. There was, what was I watching? Oh, there's the YouTube channel How Ridiculous, the bunch of us, the three Australian guys that drop things from great heights and see what happens, whether they can bounce an aeroplane off a trampoline, things like that. Took the summer off, and they've just published a series of films that they did, which is about preventing the trafficking of young girls from across the Bangladesh-Indian border.
Wow, that is not content I expected to see from the How Ridiculous guys.
Yeah. And so they went there to kind of, and they've like funded the charity that stops it happening. So they were there at this kind of border crossing where the charity operates, and they look at all the traffic going back and forth, and then they stop. They're empowered to stop tuk-tuks and jeepneys and taxis and stuff going through and check the papers. But they kind of approach it with the same enthusiasm. They're saying, yeah, it's time to put our money where our mouths are and do something positive. So that's about border control and trafficking kids and actually saving the children.
And now is the time, I think, for Mark's British Politics Corner.
How we came to talk about this fallacy was because Skeptics with a K looked at the online safety bill. It was signed into law at the beginning of the year, came into effect this year. So we'll be dealing with that. We're kind of going to segue in from Kemi Badenoch, who's the leader of the Tory party. Over the summer, we also had lots of riots here because people were protesting outside asylum hotels on the basis that, won't someone think of the children? Nothing to do with racism whatsoever. So Kemi posted a video where she met the asylum hotel protesters in Epping in northeast London. And it's not racism, it's about the children.
There are so many things that those parents told me. First and most important thing is that they are worried that they're being attacked as being far right or racist.
It is really horrible for the community, actually. It's become really divisive.
It's not a race. It's not a race.
It absolutely is.
It's about law and order.
Yeah.
It's about fairness.
Yeah.
And it's about looking after the vulnerable people, whether that's elderly people or children.
Yeah.
You should be able to walk down the street the same way we did when growing up without being afraid.
She's saying, well, I used to be able to walk the streets quite safely as a kid. And you think, well, really? You're from Nigeria. I don't know that that's necessarily true. Whenever that was. Well, maybe it was better in the 90s than it was in the 70s.
I mean, it still wasn't great, to be honest.
Yeah, no, right. And she leaps in on so she kind of goes in and says, actually, the problem is that these people are being called racist and far right. Not without reason, because they are. And then the parent says, yeah, we get called racist. And then Kemi leaps in and says, no, it's not about racism. It's about law and order. And it's about protecting the vulnerable. And it's about the children being able to walk down the street and feel safe. And you go, well, no, it's really about disabusing the parents of the fact that these people coming over here are fleeing a war zone, and perhaps what we ought to be is extending some sort of community empathy to them. And, imagine what it'd be like if you ended up having to leave your country with nothing but your children and going somewhere and then getting abused. Kemi's using it as a tool to blame decreased safety on the streets onto immigrants, and also divert attention away from ordinary white people being told that they're racist and far right. And you think, well, yeah, you're just not doing the right thing. You're using it as a political tool.
The thing is, showing asylum seekers empathy versus attacking them in a racist way, those aren't the only two options.
No.
You could just leave them the fuck alone. If you can't feel empathy towards them, you could just let them get on with their lives.
You don't have to do the other thing. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. But Kemi could go in and because it's a political choice for her to shut down all of those arguments and just say, it's about it being safe for children to walk down the street like we did when we were kids. Yeah, fucking hell. And so the second example, this segues to Farage, who made a speech that was about the online safety bill, and it was also about immigrants, and he said this.
Well, when it comes to protecting children, we're not hiding behind a flawed piece of legislation. We genuinely intend to protect, in particular, women and children. And I made this point 2 weeks ago, but I'll make it again today. None of these young, unidentified males that are coming into this country should be free to roam the streets. They should be detained ahead of them being deported.
We are going to protect the children, but we're not going to do that by getting behind the online safety bill. What we're going to do is we're going to propagate the notion that all male immigrants are sex pests or are going to eat your children, or, at the very least, cats and dogs. He's got to get, yes, we are all about protecting children. Well, unless they are the children that live in the asylum hotels, surely you're not protecting those. Won't you think about the children as they're firebombing a place that's got women and children inside it?
Yeah.
So,
yeah. They don't give a shit about the children in or fleeing from war zones.
No, of course not. Interestingly, one of LBC's presenters, Ben Kentish, pointed out Farage's flawed arguments scapegoating the immigrants.
Go back 10 years before the small boats became a real issue. How many sexual offences do you think were recorded in this country in 2015? 103,614 in 1 year. Almost 35,000 reports of rapes. 68,000 reports of other sexual offences. This is the country that Nigel Farage thinks was a safe haven for women and girls. And he wasn't talking about them, was he? He wasn't banging this drum passionately in defence of women and girls and their safety back then. But as soon as asylum seekers are the threat, it's outrageous, this is. We're not a safe haven anymore. We never were, Nigel.
So you can hide any amount of racism behind what you think of the children, and that's what he's doing. So in the same speech that Farage gave, he denigrates the online safety bill as being ineffective because children are more tech-savvy than Peter Kyle, the MP.
I mean, that is true.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's true. And Reform UK, as a result, which delightfully I've seen people shortening to refuck, would repeal the Online Safety Act.
Well, if it was to protect children, why on earth would an elite police force be set up to monitor what people say online? Why on earth are we seeing the extent to which online material has been censored, including, I was hearing this morning, even historical comments about Richard III. Yes, of course, the original intention of the Act was honourable and correct in every way, and we would stand behind it. The trouble is that I suspect most 13-year-olds are more tech-savvy than the Science Minister, Peter Kyle, because they simply go to VPNs where they can't just access what's on the web, they can even quite easily find themselves in the even deeper and darker recesses of the dark web. Do we want legislation that protects children? Yes. We're going to have to find a tech solution to it. The government is not there with it. Thank you.
So the thing about Farage is he is all about complaining that things are broken. He broke a lot of them. And that's basically his shtick, is to bite the hand that's currently feeding him. The engine of government, he's all about that. He's dying to be the Prime Minister. When he was a member of the European Parliament, all he did was spend 15 years complaining about the European Parliament and the Eurozone, whilst they paid him a handsome wage. So he's kind of caught because the online safety bill was first proposed by David Cameron yonks ago, and then it was put into place a bill was put together under Theresa May, then Boris Johnson, and then Rishi Sunak put it into place, and it got signed into law as a result of Sunak's efforts. So his problem is it's a right-wing thing. So it's fundamentally, tech service providers are putting in place things where you've got to verify your age, and Farage loves that because there are unintended consequences which mean that some of the issues about Richard III murdering princes in the Tower means that their kind of sledgehammer to crack a nut thing. It's about murder and children. So yes, you've got to have a proof of age, and you think, oh yeah, well I understand that. Here it is. But he's saying, it's basically government censorship. He acknowledges there needs to be a tech solution, but he doesn't come up with what it ought to be. He just says, but the government isn't doing it and it's awful because, and also that 13-year-olds, because they know how to use a VPN, will inevitably slippery slope down into the dark web. Well,
I mean, yeah.
Okay.
No, the trouble with this is that it is a terrible idea, but that's been badly executed.
Yeah.
But I mean, in a way, kudos to Farage for finding an example that doesn't fall under the kind of thing that he wouldn't want. Like, for example, people being able to look up stuff about sexuality and being trans and sex education and that kind of stuff, which they can't do now or can't do as easily.
Yeah.
They can still do because, yes, kids are pretty savvy and use a VPN. But he'd be happy about that. So he couldn't use those kinds of things as examples. Yeah. So, good. Well done for finding one that makes it sound ridiculous without actually helping anyone.
Yeah. So, yes, and so Peter Kyle, the science minister that he's talking about, appears on Sky News in the wake of Farage saying he'd scrapped the Online Safety Act, and says that Farage is therefore on the sides of those people. He's basically doing the won't you think of the children? Yeah. And Farage is saying, well, hang on a minute, this is a bit flawed. And Peter Carr is saying, well, therefore you are against the children.
We have now asked to age verify the age in which people can have access to online content so we can protect children from unwanted, dangerous content. Nigel Farage wants to turn the clock right back when all of that, I have absolutely no doubt about it, people are perpetrating more crime online, more danger to children online, and Nigel Farage has said he wants to overturn every single one of the laws that keeps children safe in our country.
He's hiding all of the flaws of the Online Safety Act and all of the actual censorship that is inadvertently going on behind the won't thee think of the children. And here's Christo Fufas, who's a right-wing commentator, on GB News, spotting this shutting down of the debate.
I'm really angry about this. I'm really angry, right, that we have this ridiculous culture of safetyism. Oh, you might hear an opinion you don't like. Oh my God, you'll shatter. Something terrible will happen if you hear something. Oh, it'll incite some sort of terrible violence. You poor things. Well, firstly, we're able to hear opinions we don't like. And do you know how we know we're able to hear opinions we don't like? Because anyone who disagrees has just been called a paedophile. That's how we know we hear opinions we don't like. I'm so worried about where debate is going in this country and the extremes that people are going to when it comes to debate. You're either pro or anti, you are left or right. There's no middle ground. And I think online that happens an awful lot. And the way you solve problems is to have reasonable conversations and middle ground, and you try and agree. And so for this idiot minister, Peter Kyle, to call everyone paedophiles, I mean, that's the kind of extremist language you get from the far right, just the opposite.
So he's straw-manned it a bit by saying, actually, what he's saying is that if you don't agree with this, then you're a paedophile. Well, he didn't. He said his argument was, if you don't agree with this, then you're on the side of the people that don't agree with this.
Yeah, it's more of a guilt by association than
Oh, yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Calling people a paedophile.
But Peter Carl is using that. He's telescoping all of that into paedophile, which just shuts down the argument. And far be it from me to agree with Christo Fufas. He's quite right. It's just like he points out that it's all very polarized. And using this just sort of shouting the paedophile thing, which is a shortened version of won't somebody think of the children, is shutting down the debate. And it's a deliberate act to stop people talking about the flaws of this particular bill.
My mother would tell me, better stay in line. No need to look for the logic. If it's in the way, just tell them lies. My dad used to tell me, you ain't gotta work real hard. Keep it straight or crooked, from the head then the heart. If you ask my brother, I know what he'd say. Let the children play. It's not where we're coming from, it's where we want to be. We know where we got to go, we just need the lies. Wild fantasy.
Europe there, of course, with Let the Children Play.
And in the Fallacy of the Wild, we like to talk about the fallacies of the week from a non-political perspective. And our first example this week, we're going back to the impressive well of logical fallacies that is Gaston from Beauty and the Beast.
Okay.
If I didn't know better, I'd think you had feelings for this monster.
He's no monster, Gaston. You are.
She's as crazy as the old man. The beast will make off with your children. He'll come after them in the night.
No.
We're not safe till his head is mounted on my wall. I say we kill the beast. We're not safe until he's dead. He'll come stalking us at night.
Set to sacrifice our children to his monstrous appetite.
So she's immediately convinced, that lady.
Yeah.
By Gaston's suggestion that he'll come after your children.
What about the children?
Yeah.
He's a beast, yeah. Rather than just saying, hang on a minute, Gaston, where's your evidence? Where's your evidence for that? Yeah. Rather than just stirring up the crowd, I know I've got a flaming pitchfork in my hand, but I'm still open to discussing this in a kind of middle ground kind of way.
Yeah. So our second example is from A Bit of Fry and Laurie.
Right.
And in this sketch, Hugh Laurie is playing a lady who is disgusted by something that she saw on TV.
I thought the whole thing was disgusting. I thought the whole thing was simply disgusting.
Yes, did you
I mean, there was no warning given as to what was in store. None whatsoever.
We have the producer with us.
Now, for goodness sake, what if my children had been watching? I mean, no thought had been given to this at all.
Did your children actually see the programme?
No. They didn't. They didn't see it, no. But only thanks to the purest good fortune that they don't actually happen to have been born yet. Otherwise, I dread to think what damage may have been caused. It was simply disgusting.
Fantastic.
Yeah, this happens in real life more than you would think. One of my first jobs in media was working in the duty office at Channel 5 TV, which is the office that takes calls and letters from the public.
Right.
And sometimes they are complaints, and sometimes people would specify that they had not been watching the programme that they were complaining about with any children, but they were concerned for any children who might have been watching.
Right.
And thought it was just not the kind of thing that should be on television. It absolutely happens.
Fantastic.
People are like, yes, I can imagine some children who theoretically could possibly have been harmed by this. Therefore my personal dislike of it is entirely justified.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. And and you can kind of hide behind the fact that you're Mary Whitehouse in Next Generation by saying, oh, yeah, but what about the children? Yeah. I think it was Bill Bailey, the stand-up comic who we adore, would do a thing when he'd lapse into speaking as a mother. Yeah, kind of like it would do that and stuff. As a lactating mother of three, it would kind of, and that's the appeal to the children stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, you mentioned Mary Whitehouse, so that was absolutely a group in Britain in the 70s and 80s,
the Festival of Light
campaign. They were old ladies for the most part, who would campaign against things they found distasteful, largely based on protecting children.
Yes.
And in the US, there was Anita Bryant in the 70s who would...
Oh, right. Contemporary
she was
with
actually,
them then.
her group, I think it was called Save Our Children. And
wow.
They were campaigning basically against gay marriage and particularly about gay teachers, openly gay people being allowed to be teachers. They felt was likely to lead to
people
kids being more likely
gay.
to be gay. Yeah.
Wow.
So that's the kind of thing that they would campaign against. And obviously it was just homophobia dressed up as protecting children.
Protecting children.
So speaking of gay marriage and the attacks against it, this final example is from Futurama. This was from an episode where they were talking about robosexual marriage, or the idea that people could get married to robots.
Right.
And this group made an ad speaking out against it.
If robosexual marriage becomes legal, imagine the horrible things that will happen to our children. Then imagine we said those things, since we couldn't think of any. As a mother, those things worry me.
Oh, that's excellent. Yeah. Yeah, because that is the basis of the entire argument, isn't it? Because you just kind of go, imagine
what could happen, the bad things.
Yeah. And then imagine
we can't imagine
those things because we can't think about it. Brilliant.
Yeah. This Futurama kind of spoof ad was actually a pretty spot-on parody of a real advert that was made by the National Organisation for Marriage against gay marriage. I mean, you can find it on YouTube. I'll try and put a link to it in the show notes. But it is amazing. And it's... I mean, they didn't change much. It is this weird blue screen backdrop with storm clouds and people going, I'm scared by what might happen. I'm scared for my children and that kind of, it's amazing.
So we're gonna play fake news, folks. I love the game. It's a great game. I understand the game as well as anybody. Yes, it's time for Fake News, the game where I read out 3 Trump quotes, 2 of which are real and 1 I made up, and Mark has to figure out which one is fake news.
Now, before we begin, I just want to ensure that in considering the fundamentally combative nature of this game, whether due consideration has been paid to how this might affect those in society we as adults and parents are sworn to protect, from a false sense, perhaps, that someone must come out on top. Surely... we're all winners here. Won't somebody think of the children?
You want a participation trophy, don't you? That's your problem.
Yeah.
It's the youth of today.
Yes. Yeah. When my kids were little and they go to parties and stuff, and you'd have to join in with the games. You know, I wanted competitive games because that seemed to be fun to me. And the one that people insisted on playing was just like the parachute game, where you just have a big parachute and everybody runs into it. I hated that game. And I think I realised the reason I hated it is because everyone was cooperative. They just went, yeah, well, I said, what's the point? You know, we're all running in and then you all run out.
Yeah. If some kid isn't crying by the end, why bother?
I'm not interested. Yeah.
Well, our examples this time are from Trump claiming that he saved a tank factory in Lima, Ohio.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
He was visiting Ohio for one of his rallies, and so he wanted to boast, obviously, about a thing that he'd done.
There. Yeah. Okay.
Statement number 1.
Okay. Yeah.
So they have this army tank plant, right, in Lima, and I said, what's going on? They're closing it. I said, oh, they are? Well, you know, they're closing everything. When I came in, they wanted to close everything. So I was president-elect, I think, right around that time, and I went to Lima. I went through the factory where they make these trucks, the plant, and they make the tanks, and they make all of these armoured vehicles, and I said, these people are amazing. You could never close this. You could never reopen it again.
Okay. What? Right.
Statement number 2.
Why couldn't you reopen it after having closed it? Anyway, yeah.
Door
with his Department of War, for heaven's sake.
Yeah.
Statement
number 2.
Mm-hmm.
So I did something based on my instinct, because instinct sometimes works better than anything else. Based on my instinct, I said, you can't close this plant. I went through that plant. I spent 2-3 hours talking to the people that worked there. I looked at some of that hydraulic, and I love the whole thing, the world of tractors and all of that stuff. I know a lot about it, and I looked at the carvings. I looked at the metal. I looked at how perfect everything was, the turrets, the round, how perfect it fit. They put it on.
Fuck. Okay. Carvings. Right. Okay. Right.
And statement number 3.
Yeah.
So I talked to them about it, and they couldn't believe I knew what I was talking about. But they showed me how it all went together, and I said, this is unbelievable. How can they do this? Who's going to make our beautiful tanks? I think it's like the only place that makes them. And we need more tanks. We hardly have any left. And the ones we do have are falling apart. So I said, we're going to save it. And in fact, we're going to buy a lot more. So the people of Lima love me because I saved their town. It was going down the tubes.
He manages to get a backhanded insult in, doesn't he? Yeah, I've saved your town. Your town's awful. I've saved it. Hello, Lima. How are you doing? Your town was awful, but I saved it. Wow. Oh, yeah, right. Well, yeah, that reminds me when he talked about we left all that lovely equipment in Iraq or Afghanistan or where, yeah.
Afghanistan, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm completely in love with the carvings and the round. Yeah, but is that a some of that hydraulic? You see, there's maybe too many singulars where there should be plurals, which is a bit of a lure. Okay, on that basis, I'm thoroughly taken in by number 2, so it's either 1 or 3. I think number 3 is the one that you made up.
Okay, so of the other 2, you're more convinced by number 2?
Number 2, yeah.
And number 2?
Yeah.
Is real.
So I did something based on my instinct, because instinct sometimes works better than anything else. Based on my instinct, I said, you can't close this plant. I went through that plant. I spent 2-3 hours talking to the people that work there. I looked at some of that hydraulic, and I love the whole thing, the world of tractors and all of that stuff. I know a lot about it. And I looked at the carvings, I looked at the metal, I looked at how perfect everything was, the turrets, the round, how perfect it fit. They put it on.
That's so good, isn't it? Looked at the carvings. I looked at the
yeah, the ancient tank carvings.
Runes on the wall, yeah. Looked at the carvings. I looked at the metal. I looked at that hydraulic. And I looked at that hydraulic, and I'm not even sure what it is. And I love the whole thing, the world of tractors. Oh, man. I know a lot about it.
So, you also think that number 1 is real?
Yeah.
And number 1 is real.
So they have this army tank plant, right, in Lima. And I said, what's going on? They're closing it. I said, oh, they are? Well, they're closing everything. When I came in, they wanted to close everything. So I was president-elect, I think, right around that time. And I went to Lima. I went through the factory where they make these trucks, the plant. And they make the tanks, and they make all of these armored vehicles. And I said, these people are amazing. You could never close this. You could never reopen it again.
Why? I mean, if demand had dropped off and then demand went back up, you could reopen it, because that would be the place to reopen. A former tank manufacturing plant would be the first place you'd go if you wanted to start up tank manufacturing again.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, you wouldn't nip down to Walmart. So, got any tanks with the round and the perfect fit? They go, no, we've never made. Why don't you just open the tank plant?
It would have cost money to decommission the plant.
Right.
If they did want to shut it down.
Yeah.
And then if you wanted to reopen it, it would have cost again. Mm-hmm. It would have been somewhere in the region of $2 billion, I think, to do both ends of it. So to shut it down, it's like $300 million.
Is that because of the smelting?
Obviously, you've got to deal with the carvings. They're going to be an issue.
Yeah, it's
a process.
Yeah.
To decommission and then recommission a plant like that. Yeah. It is the only place that makes the M1 Abrams tanks for the US. The other stuff, however, that he was talking about, not strictly true. Some of the things that he mentioned. Like, for example, the whole story of him going there, visiting the plant, saving the plant.
And talking to people.
Yeah.
Didn't happen.
So this was in 2020, this speech that he gave.
Right.
He visited the Lima tank plant in 2019, so about like 5 months prior to this speech.
Yeah.
I got the actual schedule, the presidential schedule from that day.
Yeah.
They arrived at the Joint Systems Manufacturing Center in Lima at 2:25. He toured the plant for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And then he gave an hour's talk to the workers.
They
talked up on stage
audience.
for an hour.
Yeah.
And then he left.
Wow.
In terms of time that he had to actually get any input from the employees, it was 20 minutes.
20 minutes. Before he then gave them a lot of input about how brilliant he is.
I mean, I'm not going to say he absolutely didn't go when he was president-elect or around that time. But if he did, no one wrote about it. No one mentioned it online.
Yeah.
They talked about other times he went while he was campaigning, that he went to Ohio and things he visited and places he gave talks and stuff like that. But for him to spend 2 to 3 hours at a military facility, essentially a military manufacturing facility, during the campaign, and just no one wrote anything about it at all.
Yeah, people wouldn't notice that thing. That makes it safe for him to talk about, because he can just say, the media didn't report it, so he can make up anything he likes.
But more importantly, they weren't closing this plant.
Right. Yeah. So he didn't go there for as long as he said he did, nor was there a problem.
Well, he went just recently for a very short visit.
Yeah.
He didn't go when he said he did, and it wasn't closing. He didn't save it. Other than that, all of the stuff he said about it was absolutely true.
Absolutely true. Yeah.
So there was talk about closing it in 2015.
Right.
Basically because the army doesn't need big tanks as much as they used to. They just don't.
Yeah.
So the Army Chief of Staff at the time, General Ray Odierno, said that they should close it. They don't need any tanks. He said, we don't need the tanks. Our tank fleet is 2.5 years old on average. We're in good shape. These are additional tanks we don't need.
Right.
And because the government, the Congress had funded money for military equipment, including tanks, and they wanted to spend money on tanks in this factory. And the guy in charge of the army was going, no, this is a waste of money. We don't need this money to be spent on tanks. What we should do is stop making the tanks for now and then start up again in the future if we need them.
Yeah.
He lost that fight. Congress voted to spend $183 million on tanks.
Tanks that are not needed.
Partly to keep the factory going rather than close it down. It wasn't entirely that they decided that they wanted more tanks. But yeah, by the time the 2016 budget came around, still under Obama, they increased that to $368 million instead of $183 million for upgrades to the Abrams and new tanks. So they were increasing the amount of tanks they were ordering from this factory before Trump came in.
Right. So it wasn't...
And against the wishes of the army who said, we're not really using tanks as much as we used to.
Keep foisting tanks on us.
Yeah.
What we could do with, there's a lot of other things, but no. Got to have, yes.
The
political
chief
tanks.
of staff of the army said, if we had our choice, we would use that money in a different way.
Yeah.
But it was arranged by Congress, it was voted on, and they were ramping up production at that factory before Trump came in. It wasn't in danger of closing. He didn't visit it at the time.
Yeah.
There we go. Other than that...
all of the premises are wrong. The government would just be... Because there are a bunch of people who have little or no experience of any of the departments they're working in, particularly if they're new politicians. But what they would do is listen to the experts... And if, particularly if an expert is saying, actually, we don't need that money, then you go, oh, well, that's great. We can divert this military expenditure on bringing about peace. But Congress is going, we need to be seen to be having tanks. So we're going to make you buy tanks. Well, we've got nowhere to put them. And that's the thing. You're going to have to start a war in order for us to deploy the tanks. Because the parking lot is full. Yeah, you would think, let's just talk to the experts. Let's be humble in our role. And I'm disappointed in Obama because I thought he was more of a listener.
Well, in his second term in 2016, Congress was Republican.
Yeah.
So he didn't actually control the purse strings. So... we have some social contestants on this one.
Yeah.
You obviously got that right.
Oh,
so you get a point this week.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Done.
Yay! Yeah.
On Facebook, Jeremy says, 2, I'm not confident he would be able to recall the word hydraulics without first stumbling over it or mispronouncing it, or if he did get it right. He always defines what he thinks big, difficult words are, so we know he knows it, like groceries.
Yeah. Yeah, and how to spell us. Yeah.
Jerome says, all I can hear in my head is, they're eating the tanks, they're eating the armoured vehicles in Lima, Ohio.
Yeah.
Choice number 1 seems to provide context to the other two, so I'm going to say that's the fake one. Trump giving context doesn't seem like his skill.
Nice. Yeah.
And Christine says, but 2 sounds so real, Jeremy. I think the effort of getting hydraulic right exhausted him so much that he lost track of the rest of that phrase and resorted to his fallback waffle. I think 3 is also real, possibly spoken early in the day, if you know what I mean. So that leaves number 1 as the fake one.
Wow. Oh, there you go. Nice.
Yeah. On Patreon, Richard Thunder Hopkins says, I found the Fallacious Trump podcast the day episode 3 went live, roughly, and I swear these statements started off completely sane compared to the complete gibberish that we see now. I'd like to put that down to your creative flair, Jim, but truth be known, the President of America has been sliding into total cognitive collapse at an alarming rate for the last few years, and I'm here for it. Number 2 is fake. He couldn't follow the word hydraulic with anything because pig shit is smarter.
Yeah, that's what he did peter out, and I think that was actually true. But it turns out it was real life. Yeah.
Anders says, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. Time for fake news, the game where I don't have a clue. But this time, I think it's 3. I have a feeling the first 2 are uncharacteristically on the low side of self-praise by the Trumpo-lantern, and that gave Jim a chance to sneak in just a tiny few in the last one to put us off.
Nice thinking. Yeah. See that? Yeah. See, I'm studying. I'm not writing them down honestly.
Well, you got that one right.
I know, but all of the strategies that they're coming up with, this is why I think that was, Trumpo-lantern, brilliant, because he's perfectly orange. Yeah.
Scott says, I want number 2 to be real. He looked at the round. The round what? He certainly knows a lot about that. Number 3 has to be real. He thinks a few tanks we have left are falling apart because he thinks that squeaky vintage tank from his stupid birthday bash is our very last tank. That leaves number 1 as the one you made up. While suitably rambling and trumpily vague and over the top, they're closing everything. It is just a little too orderly.
Nice. Well, there you go. Your sleight of hand.
Renee Z says, well done, Jim. This is difficult. I seem to recall he went to Lima, pronounced with a long I. Yeah, he did get it wrong one time when he was in Ohio and the crowd corrected him.
No,
so
you're not in Lima.
Yeah. During his first term. Was he there again recently? Who knows? Maybe he wandered away from the White House and took the bus to Ohio. If he's telling this old story now, I can imagine that he thought he was president-elect. So number 1 must be real. I'm choosing 3 as fake news because number 2 is so out in the weeds it must be real. So Renee's right that he did go in his first term, but not when he was president-elect. So that's great Trump knowledge.
Nice.
Yeah. And it did lead her towards the correct answer. So
there you go.
Well done.
There you go. Brilliant.
One-Eyed Nick says, Donkey King with another nonsense babble of nothing talk. The one bit I think is true from this dementia tribe is the part where they couldn't believe he knew what he was talking about. If he mentioned the turrets and the round, then they'd been providing no reason to believe he knew what he was talking about. So because that was the only true thing in there, I think 3 is fake. Well done.
So what I love is the insight into the convoluted paths that just engaging with the Trump madness leads you on. And it's just this whole kind of internal Gordian knot of trying to unravel some sort of logic out of it. And then you just go, so therefore, number 3. Yeah. You go, I didn't expect
And finally,
that.
Invisible Unicorn says, okay, does anyone really believe he would talk to the workers in a plant for hours? Number 2 is fake. It makes me depressed when I realise these are all perfectly plausible. How did we get here? This is not my beautiful president.
Yeah. Nice. Same as it ever was.
So it's time for the part of the show that this week at least is called Press Freedom is Not a Logical Fallacy. Because as much as the Trump administration has attacked the press and got several individual press outlets chucked out of the press room in the White House and got Jim Acosta, his credentials were taken away because he asked a question that Trump didn't like, and the AP were chucked out because they didn't say the Gulf of America and stuff like that. But for the most part, the press hasn't kind of stuck together as one unit. And what I would have liked to see occasionally is when someone asked a question and Trump shut it down, the next one journalist he called on should ask the same question.
Yeah.
And we've seen it like a couple of times over Trump's entire time in the presidency. Sometimes one has said, actually, I'd like an answer to what that person just asked, please. That should be the standard, and the press should stand together and demand respect and access. Yeah. Because a free press
and some sort of accountability.
Presidency.
Yes.
I mean, I was going to say, honest, that's a bit of a high goal
far.
For this presidency. But it's important. A free press is important. And as we have discussed quite recently, Pete Hegseth, the former Weekend Fox and Friends host, who is now running the biggest department in the US government with a budget of $1 trillion, tried to get news outlets who have access to the Pentagon to sign essentially an oath to say that they wouldn't do any journalism.
Yeah.
They would only
they'd only do puff
report
pieces.
things he told
Yeah.
them.
Yes.
Basically.
Yeah.
They would only report on official, sanctioned Pentagon information that had been approved. He gave them a deadline. It was this Tuesday, and he said that basically, if you haven't signed, you can turn in your press credentials and leave the Pentagon, because this is it's a hard line. We're not gonna. There's no negotiation here.
Yeah.
And in almost every case, they said, "Well, fuck you then. We are going to continue to journal stuff.
Yeah.
And we aren't going to just print the press releases you give us.
Yeah.
Because that's not what this is all about. And if that means we don't get to be in the building and have a badge that lets us roam around a bit and ask questions of important people, then okay, we'll do it from outside.
We'll do it from outside. Yeah.
So on Wednesday morning, a big bunch of journalists from all different kinds of outlets all packed up their stuff and left the Pentagon.
Wow.
And it was quite a visual, actually, seeing them all walking out as one with their cardboard boxes and just going, well, that's it now. And it was people from actual proper news places, newspapers and actual TV channels, and also even Fox News.
Oh, wow.
And Newsmax.
What?
Have I got that right? I think Newsmax. It's hard to believe, but I think Newsmax is one of the ones who walked out. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, they walked out as well. I was mixing them up briefly in my head with One American News.
Oh, okay.
Who are one of the very few places people who've stayed.
Right.
Because, I mean, they don't do news anyway, so why start now?
Yeah.
I think that was their official statement.
So actually, with all the legitimate news outlets and Fox News all leaving the building, it's left those ones behind. As you would see, that's revealed us to be not legitimate news people. We don't do the holding people to account, independent reporting type
Some
thing.
of them, I don't know what the situation is in their countries, because they're not all American organisations. The ones who have stayed, who actually signed the pledge to only put out press releases.
Wow.
Most of them, in fact, are foreign organisations. So I don't know what's going on with them in terms of their affiliations, or if they, if that's the only way they're ever going to get any information out of America, or what. I don't know enough to kind of criticise them or praise them or whatever.
Yeah.
But of the US ones that stayed, there are only 3 organisations. There are 4 signatories. There are 2 journalists. I'm going to use journalists in inverted commas from One American News Network.
Right.
One from the Federalist, right-wing website, and one from the right-wing newspaper, the Epoch Times. Those are the American sites. The others are a Turkish state-run agency, 3 individuals from them, 2 Turkish freelancers, a reporter for the Australian, and News Corp-owned Australian paper. News Corp is the Fox, is Rupert Murdoch's organisation. A freelancer from Afghanistan, people from the India Globe and USA Journal Korea, and something called AWPS News, which I don't know what that is. But basically, it means that the group who are still there, who are getting information from the Pentagon, which Pete Hegseth wants to put out there, are extremely fringe.
Yeah.
We're only ever going to say good things anyway, or have negligible audiences in the US.
Yeah.
The ones who have left and have pledged to continue to do the kind of news gathering they were doing before, where they actually talk to people, find out stuff, and it prints it, even if the Pentagon doesn't say, yes, this is exactly what we'd like you to say, thank you. They're still at their jobs, they're still doing stuff. And in fact, one of the people, again, journalist, maybe feels too strong, but one person at the Epoch Times has left because the paper didn't walk out. Because they signed the pledge. A person who worked for them reporting the news has said, I'm out, because even for me, this is a step too far.
Yeah. Wow. It reminds me of the work that I did for the BBC's International Development Charity, was to make films about the work that they were doing in various parts of the world to get journalists to not just publish press releases from the government, but to ask searching questions. So they would introduce kind of question time type programming, and where they got a public forum where members of the public would ask questions of politicians, and politicians would be called to account to, appear on the programme and justify what they're doing. And that's in, kind of very fragile parts of the world with dictatorial governments, and that's the work of an international development charity, intergovernmental stuff that's funding this at the behest of local journalists in countries. How do we hold our government to account? And here's the country that formally funded some of that development through USAID, now doing the complete opposite. They're doing all of the things that their development dollars were put to preventing in other countries, and now they're doing the same thing. They've literally taken all the playbook stuff and then just kind of going, oh yeah, well, this is how you shut down the press. My fear is that actually what it means is that Hegseth and the Trump administration will just say, yeah, well, that told them, and now they're not able to get hold of insider information. Well, they weren't anyway, because you weren't going to give them insider information. You were only going to give them the fluffy puff pieces to big up the Department of War, rather than hold your feet to the fire and say, why are you, a former Fox News host, why are you doing this stuff and calling all the generals in and telling them not to wear a beard and be fat?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they already took away the kind of benefits that some organisations had when they moved around. They kind of decided to rotate out the media organisations within the Pentagon who had more access. They had their own offices within the Pentagon specifically for those organisations. And so they got rid of several major news organisations and installed the kind of more Trump-friendly cable channels and blogs and things like that.
Yeah.
And so I think one thing that this does, on top of, I think, being a good message to send, it also takes away the likely situation, which was if you say things they're not going to like, or if you print stuff they would rather you hadn't printed, they will do something to restrict your access more.
Right.
They will reduce, they'll have kind of tiers of access for people to be able to roam around the Pentagon freely and talk to whoever they want, or might have to be accompanied and kind of chaperoned around, all that kind of stuff, that they could then reward people who print things they like and punish people who print things they don't like. I feel that was already starting to happen, and I think it's something that probably would have continued if you don't get something like this situation where they're like, oh, fuck you, then we'll just do our job from outside
elsewhere. We'll just go without interference by you. If we can't get access to this stuff, then and you're going to restrict our access and thereby restrict our reporting, yes, it does fill you full of hope. Even down to Fox News, and
the Daily Caller, like that.
They're taking their function and their calling as journalists seriously. In a kind of, puts me in mind of the Hippocratic Oath. They've kind of said, yes, we're going to print the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And if we're going to be prevented from doing that in the Pentagon, then hundreds of us will walk out. We're just going to go.
And realistically, these people almost certainly, or a lot of them already have the contact details of the people that they would have spoken to in the Pentagon, who might have been prepared to give them information that wasn't strictly approved by Hegseth.
Yeah.
So they're still going to be able to meet with those people in a bar after work and that kind of stuff. And they'll be able to get the stories, and there'll be stuff that comes out about what's going on in the Pentagon. Just as there has been this whole time, and it will all just be as scary and bad as it has been up to now. I don't think we're going to see a lack of stories about what he's doing and how bad he is at his job.
Yeah. And you'd think that they would embrace the fact of having journalists in the Pentagon would be to embrace the transparency of saying, this is where your tax dollars are going. we're doing this on behalf of the country, and be open to the fact that the country might say, either at the midterms or in public, well, we don't like what you're doing. Stop doing that. Do something else.
Well, they claim they're super transparent, don't they? As an administration.
Yeah. Yes, there must be every time they do it, I think there must be a witty comeback where you can say, well, they're just empty-headed. They're not transparent. There's just nothing between their ears. There it is. Yeah. That's the one. Yeah.
An empty vase.
Yes. Yeah, and empty vessels. Yeah, yes, exactly. Yeah. And finally, some things we really don't have time to talk about.
Trump and his ilk have been claiming for a while now that Democrat cities are war zones, overrun with crime and burned down on the daily by violent far-left protesters against his totally cool and legal immigration policies, who are either high-ranking members of Antifa, paid by George Soros, or both. The mayors of those cities and the governors of the states they occupy have tried to fight back with ridiculous tools like facts, video footage of National Guard troops having nothing to do in their peaceful communities, and pointing out that Trump is a brainless cockwomble. None of this has worked, because the brainless cockwomble's followers are easily led by malicious liars like Stephen Miller, or as I like to call him, Pee Wee German. Finally, though, there's a breakthrough in the info war, and it's thanks to the wonderful weirdos of Portland who have taken to protesting outside the ice facility dressed in giant inflatable animal costumes. Frogs are the most popular, but there are unicorns, raccoons, peacocks, dinosaurs and more. They dance and twerk joyfully in the street, and in doing so, make anyone who yells fearfully about the violent radical left protesters look like a giant fucking idiot. One bright spark has even set up a website called Operation Inflation, where you can donate to help them provide more inflatable costumes to protesters. Excellent. It's currently Portland only, but they hope to expand to other cities soon, and there will be a link in the show notes.
Yay.
Some of the attendees at the second No King's Day protests on Saturday got the memo and showed up in their own inflatable costumes, while others went for the traditional irreverent signs. Estimates put the total number at around 7 million across the US, and I know that includes some of our loveliest listeners. The GOP tried rebranding it as a hate protest, with Mike Johnson claiming it would just be Marxist and Hamas supporters, and various of his wingnut confreres calling it un-American. They're wrong a lot, so it's hard to be sure, but this might be the wrongest they've ever been. What could possibly be more American than peacefully protesting against the tyrannical rule of a king?
I'd like to think that it's the result of unforeseen circumstances coming to bite the arse of the Trump administration, as the entire Office of Detention Oversight has been placed on furlough due to the government shutdown. But then I note that they've not all been laid off without pay or subject to Russell Vought summarily firing the lot of them, so I'm left with the chilling thought that it's not despite, but rather because there are surging numbers of detainees. The Office of Detention Oversight, part of Immigration and Customs Enforcement, inspects detention centres to ensure they meet federal standards for the safe and humane treatment of immigrants. And whilst Trump officials have vowed that there will be no change to essential ICE operations, thanks to the Department of Homeland Security using the $170 billion infusion of immigration and border funding to ensure the masked and out-of-uniform personal Trump militia arrest and cart away anyone who's not a member of the correct skin colour demographic, there's no money to ensure the rapidly deteriorating conditions in the detention centres, as reported by lawyers and detainees themselves, are monitored or improved. Well, of course they're not. This is the party whose New York youth branch lolled and ruffled over gas chambers in their WhatsApp group. It's just another part of the GOP's final solution.
While everything goes to shit around our ears, if we need a quick mental pick-me-up, we can always look back on the fact that Fox News had to pay Dominion Voting Systems $778 million for knowingly lying about them rigging the 2020 election.
Yay!
If I was Dominion CEO John Poulos, I'd probably have taken a nice long holiday with the presumably massive bonus I would get for that settlement. But John pushed on and got another $67 million from Newsmax, and last month got undisclosed settlements from One American News, Rudy Giuliani and Sidney Powell. They still have a pending defamation case against pillowy loudmouth Mike Lindell, but he's completely broke, so there's not much point in continuing with that one. Perhaps that's why John has decided to hang up his cables? I don't know what a voting machine needs, if I'm completely honest. Anyway, hang up whatever and sell the company to the not at all ominously named Liberty Vote, an election technology company owned by Scott Leyendecker. Scott used to be the Republican director for the St. Louis City Board of Elections, but that doesn't necessarily make him an election denier. His statement on the takeover on Liberty Vote's website doesn't entirely clear it up, though. He says, "We are turning the page and beginning the vital work of restoring faith in American elections. While these changes will not happen overnight, Liberty Vote's mission is rooted in American values and committed to transparency, independent audits, and verifiable paper records." It's weird because without all the bullshit surrounding the 2020 election, these words on their own wouldn't seem threatening, but I can't help but hear the faint shrill of a dog whistle in them. Especially since faith in American elections was only destroyed by Trump's lies, and Dominion was doing a pretty fucking great job of restoring it, what with all the winning in court.
George Santos. Well, if only that name elicited the same spontaneous booing hatred from the right as George Soros. You remember Santos, jailed in April for 7 years, having admitted to stealing the identities of 11 people, including his own family members, and been found guilty of having lied about his background and misused campaign funds to finance his lifestyle, eventually charged with 23 federal felony crimes, and in 2023 became the first expelled member of Congress in more than 20 years, and only the 6th in history. Remember him? At the time, the judge told him, "You got elected with your words, most of which were lies." Well, speaking of which, Trump has just commuted his sentence and Santos walked free last Friday. Trump's reasoning was that poor old George has been horribly mistreated, adding, "Therefore, I just signed a commutation releasing George Santos from prison immediately. Good luck, George. Have a great life." Of course, when your moral compass is as way off as Donny's is, he sees nothing wrong in what Santos did, simply that he got punished. Why punish a guy when he's done nothing wrong? After all, Santos had the courage, conviction and intelligence to always vote Republican, said Trump when criticising Democratic Senator Richard Blumenthal, who he accused of fabricating his US military service. This allegation of 15 years ago has been really rejected by the voters of Connecticut 3 times, overwhelmingly re-electing me, Blumenthal told CNN earlier the month. Trump, of course, cannot lie about his military service because he lied in order to avoid it. He also cannot rely on the goodwill of the voters of Connecticut to vote him in again, or at all. So he's crushing the opposition, rounding up and deporting alleged Democratic voters of alleged immigrant stock, and freeing people who will, of course, loyally bend over and grab their own ankles whilst the behemoth of the GOP shoves its thanks unceremoniously up their arses. Santos, through Joseph Murray, one of his lawyers, whilst inclining forwards and reaching for his shoelaces, said, "God bless President Donald J. Trump." Interestingly, a commutation of sentence does not void criminal convictions, unlike a pardon. So don't disappear, or relax, or even stand up straight, Georgie boy. Don Trump-Leone still holding a sword over your head. He's got a future favour to call in.
Politico got hold of some chat messages from a Telegram group shared by 11 leaders of young Republican groups in 4 states. And this will shock you, the views expressed weren't all about how to improve the lives of working Americans, lower taxes and strengthen the free market.
I'm shocked.
Instead, it contained quite a lot of those other views Republicans are sometimes known for. In amongst the 2,900 pages of chats, there were 251 slurs, including the N-word, the F-slur, the R-slur, and several others too creative to be defined by a single letter. References to watermelons and monkeys peppered the conversation when black people were mentioned. They joked about raping or gassing their enemies, and one of them specifically wrote, "I love Hitler." They called people from Rhode Island traitorous cunts, and people from Arkansas inbred cowfuckers. But look, broken clock, right? Just because they get one thing right doesn't mean we should start listening to them. Okay, I'd like to formally apologise to any Arkansas listeners we may have. I think we're probably okay. They don't have internet in Arkansas. Anyway, some people thought this was pretty bad, but JD Vance wants you to know it's not a big deal. He said on the Somehow Still a Thing Charlie Kirk show, "Grow up. Focus on the real issues. Don't focus on what kids say in group chats. The reality is that kids do stupid things, especially young boys. They tell edgy, offensive jokes. That's what kids do." Yeah, this is just boys being boys. After all, it's the young Republicans, right? What are they, like 12? Oh, they're actually between 24 and 35. Well, fuck. But JD had some advice, which he says he shares with his 3 kids. Don't put things on the internet. Be careful what you post. If you put something in a group chat, assume that some scumbag is going to leak it in an effort to try and cause you harm or cause your family harm. So, Hopefully, if they take Dad's advice, Vance's kids will hide their racism better so it doesn't get leaked by some asshole. Incidentally, that is basically the response of one of the racists in the chat. Peter Giunter, the 31-year-old who wrote I Love Hitler, blamed the leak on Rouge members of the Trump administration. I think he meant rogue, conspiring against him. Another member of the chat said, "This has been a painful lesson about judgment and trust. Leave it to Republicans to always learn the wrong lesson."
Exactly. Trump announced Thursday that he will soon meet with Putin in Budapest, Hungary, to discuss an end to the war in Ukraine. I'm betting soon means 2 weeks. The choice of destination has raised questions because Putin is wanted by the International Criminal Court. However, the Associated Press reports that Hungary appears unlikely to cooperate with the warrant and is in the process of leaving that court. When HuffPost asked the White House who chose the location for the meeting, Chucky doll in a twin set, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said, "Your mum did." Communications Director Stephen Chung, of course, took Leavitt aside momentarily, apologised to the journalist, said Leavitt's words were taken out of context and proffered a full and reasoned response, glossing over, of course, that Hungary wouldn't be adhering to the call to arrest Putin for war crimes under international law. No, didn't do any of that. He also followed up with, "Your mum," justifying the kind of juvenile behaviour Beavis and Butthead would draw the line at. Leavitt responded to HuffPost asking, "Do you think that's funny?" With, "It's funny to me that you actually consider yourself a journal. You are a far-left hack who nobody takes seriously, including your colleagues in the media. They just don't tell you that to your face. Stop texting me your disingenuous, biased and bullshit questions." When The Independent asked the White House if "your mom" was an appropriate answer, spokesperson Taylor Rogers responded that it was more than appropriate. The individual who received these texts is not a real reporter. They're a Democrat activist. As a result, the response they received was more than appropriate. The White House press team fields and responds to hundreds of serious requests every day from actual reporters. We don't have time to waste on partisan hacks. And I think what they've done there is give the entire press corps the solution to dealing with the whole fucking partisan, moronic, fascistic, free speech, hating, accountability, avoiding Trump communications team. Just don't waste your time on them. Starve them of the oxygen of publicity. Have an entire news blackout on Trump's entire activities for a day. It'll only take a day. He can only exist if people see him and pretend he's great. Throw the bucket of water of anonymity over him and watch him drain into the sewer, waving his tiny hands, crying, "I'm melting! I'm melting! No one has ever melted as good as me in the entire history of the world." Trouble is, I don't think we're in Kansas anymore.
Okay, what the fuck is happening with Marjorie Taylor Greene? Has she been visited by 3 ghosts? Or 4 if you count Marley, which you obviously should. She's gone from being a crazy Jewish space lasers lady who harasses survivors of school shootings in the street to calling for the release of the Epstein files, accusing Israel of genocide in Gaza and criticising the One Big Beautiful Bill for its approach to AI regulation. Earlier this year, she criticised Trump's decision to conduct military strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities. Earlier this month, she said Trump's tariffs are raising prices and his mass deportation policy is going to hurt American businesses. And now she's siding with the Democrats over the shutdown, saying out loud that it's about renewing Obamacare subsidies, not giving health care to immigrants, and that she supports the renewal. Democrats are confused but pleased. Raphael Warnock said, "You're going to hear me utter words I never thought I'd say. Marjorie Taylor Greene is right." And Ruben Gallego pointed out, when Marjorie Taylor Greene is saying we need to pass this, you're idiots if you're going to go down to a loss because of Donald Trump and Mike Johnson. I don't understand it. I'm not sure I like it, but it's worth keeping an eye on. Maybe she'll go fully woke next and start protesting outside an ice facility in a frog costume.
Yeah, Marjorie Taylor Greene. Yeah, makes sense. In the UK, in an attempt to further prove his innocence, like he did when he paid £12 million to Virginia Giuffre's charity to support trafficked women, Prince Andrew has given up all his titles. Already stripped of his military titles and charity affiliation and banned from using his HRH honorific, in a statement he said, "In discussion with the King and my immediate and wider family, we have concluded the continued accusations about me distract from the work of His Majesty and the royal family. I have decided, as I always have, to put my duty to my family and country first. I stand by my decision 5 years ago to stand back from public life. With His Majesty's agreement, we feel I must now go a step further. I will therefore no longer use my title or the honours which have been conferred upon me. As I've said previously, I vigorously deny the accusations against me. But like it fucking matters or means anything, he will thus give up his use of the Duke of York title, use of his honours as a Knight Grand Cross of the Royal Victorian Order and Royal Knight Companion of the Most Noble Order of the Garter, and the other titles given to him on his wedding day, the Earl of Inverness and Baron Clelee, meaning his only remaining title will be that of Prince, which can't be removed because he was born the son of a queen. We can only hope this means he will live in a cold water bedsit and have to eat dog food past its sell-by date from the dumpsters out the back of Lidl, but I suspect not. The entitlement of the prince remains clear. As Geoffrey's posthumous memoir recalls, he was friendly enough but still entitled, as if he believed having sex with me was his birthright. Geoffrey's family welcomed the news, taking it not as him nobly falling on his sword so as not to distract from the work of the royal family, but rather as vindication for our sister and survivors everywhere. Pictures of a grim-faced Andrew writhing under the gaze of the cameras and the wrath of Charles all seem to have been taken through the rainy windows of carriages, either to hide or enhance the fact that he's going to be really sweating now, living a hopeless life without privilege. Questions, of course, are now being asked as to where the £12 million came from. The royals are paid for from the public purse. That's taxes. Our taxes. Well, what's good enough for stripped of her title Baroness Give Us the Money Back moan is surely good enough for newly common see how you like it, you parasite Andrew.
So that's all the bad arguments and faulty reasoning we have time for this week. You'll find the show notes at fallacioustrump.com, and if you hear Trump say something stupid and want to ask if it's a fallacy, our contact details are on the contact page.
If you think we've used a fallacy ourselves, let us know, or if you've had a good time, please give us a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts, or simply tell one other person in person about how much they'd like our podcast. And you can support the show at patreon.com/ftrump. Just like our Strawman level patrons Chuck Gray, Mike Smith, LT, Colleen Lyella, Richard Thunder Hopkins, Will M, Scott, Mark Reiki, and Amber R. Buchanan, who told us when we met her at QED we could just call her Amber. And last year at QED I met the listener who recognised her at QED a year before because we keep using her full name all the time. And our true Scotsman level patrons Renee Z, Melissa Sytek, Stephen Bickle, Janet Uetta, Andrew Houck, and our top patron Kaz Tui. Thank you so much for your patronage, everybody. It's really very, very much appreciated. Thank you.
You can connect with those awesome people as well as us and other listeners in the Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/fallacioustrump or in the Discord at fallacioustrump.com/discord.
All music is by The Outbursts and was used with permission, so until next time on Fallacious Trump, we'll leave the last word to the Donald.
That's right, go home to mommy. Bye. Bye!